The grand hall of the Ysera Prime Palace was unusually silent, its towering crystal walls glimmering faintly under the soft glow of twin moons. Princess Livera sat on her elevated throne, her posture regal yet curious. The sound of heavy boots echoed as a group of royal guards entered, dragging the disheveled prisoner behind them. The sight of the man made her tilt her head slightly. A human. Here. That was rare. The guards stopped in front of her, bowing deeply. "Your Highness," one of them announced, "we found this trespasser near the royal archives. He was attempting to access restricted zones." Livera's violet eyes narrowed as she studied the man. His clothing was torn, his face streaked with dirt, but there was something about him that made her pause. He looked up briefly, just enough for her to catch a glimpse of his weary blue eyes. There was defiance in his gaze, but also something else, familiarity. "What were you doing near the archives?" Livera's voice was calm yet commanding, her tone betraying none of the unease she felt. The man didn't answer. He merely straightened his back despite the guard's firm grip on his arms. His silence only deepened the tension in the room. "Answer the princess," one guard barked, jerking the man forward. "I'm not here to harm anyone," the man finally said, his voice hoarse but steady. "I was searching for answers." Livera frowned. Answers? To what? The royal archives were a treasure trove of ancient knowledge, but only a select few had clearance to enter. What could a human possibly want from there? She gestured for the guards to hold him steady. Rising gracefully from her throne, she descended the steps, her long silver robes trailing behind her. Standing before the prisoner, she looked him over more closely. His face, though weathered, seemed familiar. A spark of memory flickered in her mind, but it was too faint to grasp. "What is your name?" she asked, her tone softer now. "Adam," he replied, his eyes meeting hers. The name struck her like a distant echo, tugging at memories she had long buried. Adam. Why did that name feel so significant? She shook off the thought, unwilling to show any sign of weakness. "Adam, your actions are considered a grave offense. Trespassing near the archives is punishable by—" Livera hesitated, the weight of her own words surprising her. Why did the idea of punishing him feel wrong? "Your Highness," a guard interrupted, "what should we do with him?" Livera's gaze lingered on Adam for a moment longer. "Take him to the dungeons," she finally said, her voice firm. "I will decide his fate later." As the guards led Adam away, he glanced back at her, his expression unreadable. Livera turned and ascended her throne once more, but her thoughts were far from settled. Who was this man, and why did his presence stir a memory she couldn't quite place? Unbeknownst to her, this encounter would unravel secrets she never expected, and change the course of her life forever. The soft hum of the palace corridors was the only sound as Princess Livera walked towards her private chambers. Her mind was restless, circling back to the human prisoner. His name, Adam, felt like a whisper from her past, yet she couldn't place where she had heard it before. Reaching her chambers, she dismissed the attendants with a wave of her hand. Alone, she approached a glass cabinet where artifacts from her travels were displayed. Among them was a small worn trinket, a carved metal charm shaped like a star, dull from years of wear. Livera picked it up delicately, the cool surface pressing into her palm. A memory surfaced, one she hadn't revisited in years. She was younger then, stranded on an asteroid after her spacecraft malfunctioned during a diplomatic mission. Days had passed with no sign of rescue, and her survival chances were grim. But then, out of the darkness, a human ship had appeared. Its captain, a kind and resourceful man named Adam, had saved her. They had spent days together, repairing her craft and sharing stories of their worlds. When they parted ways, he had given her the charm, calling it a token of friendship. Her grip on the trinket tightened as the realization hit her. Could the prisoner be the same Adam? It seemed impossible. Humans rarely ventured to Ysera Prime, let alone trespassed into restricted zones. But his eyes, his voice, it all matched. She felt a pang of guilt for sending him to the dungeons. If it was truly him, she owed him more than this. Summoning her resolve, Livera left her chambers and made her way to the palace dungeons. The air grew colder as she descended, the dim lighting casting long shadows on the stone walls. She approached the cell where the guards had placed the prisoner. Adam sat on the ground, his back resting against the wall. Though tired, he seemed calm, his gaze fixed on the narrow window high above. "Leave us," Livera ordered the guards, her tone leaving no room for argument. Once they were alone, Adam's eyes met hers. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence was thick, filled with unspoken questions. "Why did you come here, Adam?" Livera asked, stepping closer to the bars. His lips curved into a faint smile. "So you do remember me." Her breath caught in her throat. The confirmation sent a ripple through her. "It is you," she whispered. Adam nodded, his expression softening. "I didn't expect to see you again, Livera. Especially not like this." "Neither did I," she admitted. "But why are you here? Why near the archives?" Adam hesitated, then sighed. "Earth is dying. I came searching for something, anything, that could help us survive. The archives, they're said to hold ancient knowledge, technologies that could save my people." Livera's heart ached at his words. He had come seeking hope, and instead, she had thrown him in a cell. She knew she had to uncover the truth and decide whether she could help him, or if their reunion would end in tragedy. Livera stood frozen outside the cell, Adam's words echoing in her mind. "Earth is dying." The weight of his revelation pressed on her heart. She had always admired humanity's tenacity, their creativity, even in the face of despair. But now, one of their own stood before her, desperate for a lifeline. "Why didn't you ask for help through proper channels?" she asked, her voice quieter now. Adam leaned forward, resting his arms on his knees. "I tried," he said bitterly. "Earth's leaders sent delegations to countless planets, begging for assistance. Most ignored us. Some demanded impossible tributes in exchange, resources we don't have. I heard rumors about the Yuzuran archives containing forgotten technologies, and I thought, maybe I'd find something here, something worth risking everything for." Livera's gaze softened as she studied him. The Adam she remembered was brave and kind, but now there was a layer of weariness in his eyes that hadn't been there before. The years hadn't been kind to him, and his people's struggles had clearly taken their toll. "You should have come to me directly," she said. "I would have listened." Adam let out a humorless chuckle. "Would your court have allowed you to listen? I've seen enough of how these systems work, Livera. A human sneaking into a palace is a criminal to them, not a friend." She couldn't argue with that. The council and the nobles often viewed humans as inferior, a species more trouble than they were worth. But Adam wasn't just any human. He had saved her life once, and now it was his life on the line. "Tell me, Adam," Livera said, her tone more deliberate now. "What exactly were you looking for in the archives?" He hesitated, his hands tightening into fists. "Energy cores, ancient designs that could reignite Earth's failing systems. The stories say your archives hold schematics for planetary restoration technology, tech that could reverse the damage we've done to our home." Livera's mind raced. The Yuzuran archives were indeed a treasure trove of knowledge from their ancestors, including tools for environmental recovery. But the council had decreed those secrets off limits, fearing they would be misused. "Do you know how dangerous it was to come here?" she asked, stepping closer to the bars. Adam met her gaze with unflinching determination. "I know, but I had no other choice. If I didn't try, my people would have no future. I couldn't just sit back and watch everything crumble." His words struck a chord in her. She had always admired humanity's resilience, but seeing it in Adam now stirred something deeper. He had risked everything, not just for himself, but for his entire planet. After a long pause, Livera spoke, her voice laced with resolve. "I can't undo what's happened, but I can try to make it right. I'll help you, Adam. But we must tread carefully. If the council discovers this, both of us could pay the price. Adam's expression softened, and for the first time since his capture, hope flickered in his eyes. Thank you, Livara. I knew I could count on you. Their shared trust rekindled, but the path ahead was fraught with danger. Livara knew that helping Adam would put her position, and her life, at risk. But she also knew she couldn't turn her back on him now. Together, they would uncover the truth hidden in the archives, no matter the cost. The next morning, Livara sat in the council chamber, her expression calm, but her mind racing. Adam's words haunted her. Earth was dying, and he had risked everything to save it. She had promised to help him, but the question now was how. The archives were closely guarded, and any attempt to access their restricted sections would surely draw attention. As the council members debated mundane issues, Livara's focus drifted. A faint, nagging suspicion began to grow. Adam's capture near the archives wasn't a coincidence. It was too convenient. Someone had been watching the area, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Your Highness, a voice interrupted her thoughts. Councillor Vetar, a senior member with sharp features and a calculating demeanor, was staring at her. You seem distracted. Is something troubling you? Livara quickly composed herself. Not at all, Councillor. Please continue. But Vethar's probing gaze lingered for a moment too long. Livara knew he was a man of ambition, always seeking to expand his influence. If anyone had a reason to monitor the archives, it was him. After the meeting, Livara returned to her chambers. She sent a discreet summons to one of her most trusted advisors, a young intelligence officer named Selin. When Selin arrived, Livara wasted no time. I need information, she said, her tone low and urgent. Adam, the human prisoner. His capture was no accident. Someone was watching the archives. Find out who and report back to me. Selin nodded without hesitation. I'll start immediately, Your Highness. As Selin left, Livara's thoughts turned back to Adam. She had promised to help him, but her options were limited. For now, all she could do was ensure his safety. That evening, she returned to the dungeons. Adam stood as she approached, his expression wary but hopeful. Have you thought about how we'll get into the archives? He asked, leaning against the cell bars. I'm working on it, Livara replied. But there's something I need to know first. When you were captured, did you see anyone else? Anyone watching you? Adam frowned. Thinking back, there was someone. A group, actually. They didn't look like guards. They were dressed in darker uniforms, like private enforcers. They spotted me right before I reached the archive doors. Livara's suspicions deepened. Vithar was known to employ private enforcers for his personal agendas. Could he be involved? Livara, Adam said, breaking her train of thought. If there's a risk, you don't have to do this. I don't want you getting hurt because of me. She looked at him, her expression firm. I've made my choice. Adam, you risked everything to help your people. I won't let that go unanswered. His eyes softened, and for a moment, there was a flicker of the bond they once shared. But Livara knew time was running out. If her suspicions were correct, the conspiracy surrounding the archives was far bigger than Adam's mission. She would need to act quickly, before their enemies struck first. Selin returned the next day, his expression tense as he entered Livara's chambers. He bowed quickly, his voice low as he delivered his report. Your Highness, your suspicions were correct. Councillor Vethar has been monitoring the archives. He's had his private enforcers stationed there for weeks, claiming it's for security purposes. Livara's heart sank, though she tried to keep her composure. And what else did you find? Selin hesitated before continuing. Vethar has been secretly accessing restricted sections of the archives. It seems he's searching for something, a specific piece of technology. I believe Adam's arrival was merely a convenient distraction for him to cover his tracks. Livara's fingers tightened around the edge of her desk. Vethar's actions were dangerous, not just for the integrity of the archives, but for the kingdom itself. If he found something powerful and used it for his own gain, it could destabilize everything. "Does anyone else know about this?" she asked. "No, Your Highness," Selen replied. "I've kept the investigation quiet, as you ordered." Livara nodded, her mind already forming a plan. "Good. Continue to watch him, but don't let him suspect anything. I'll handle the rest." As Selen left, Livara stood and paced the room. She needed to act quickly. If Vethar was after the same technology that Adam sought, then time was against them. That evening, Livara visited Adam again. This time, she brought a hooded cloak with her. "Put this on," she instructed as she unlocked his cell. Adam raised an eyebrow, but obeyed, draping the cloak over his shoulders. "What's going on?" "We don't have much time," she said, glancing down the dimly lit hallway. "I've discovered that a powerful counselor is involved in a conspiracy. He's using the archives for his own purposes, and you've become a convenient scapegoat." Adam frowned. "So what's the plan?" "I'm getting you out of here," she said firmly. "We'll access the archives tonight, but we have to be careful. If Vithar catches us, we'll both be branded as traitors." Adam's expression shifted, a flicker of determination lighting his eyes. If it means saving Earth, it's worth the risk. The two moved silently through the palace corridors, avoiding the patrols of guards. Livara led Adam through hidden passages she had used as a child, paths known only to the royal family. When they reached the entrance to the archives, Livara paused, her heart pounding. She knew this was the point of no return. "Once we're inside, look for anything related to planetary restoration," she whispered. Adam nodded. "Got it. And Livara, thank you for everything." She gave him a brief smile before pressing her hand against the panel that opened the archive doors. They slid open with a faint hiss, revealing rows of ancient data consoles and holographic displays. As they stepped inside, Livara couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching them. The air felt heavy with anticipation. Somewhere in the shadows, danger was waiting, and they were walking straight into it. The vast hall of the archives stretched endlessly before Livara and Adam, illuminated by the faint blue glow of holographic displays and data panels. The air was cool and silent, save for the soft hum of ancient technology. Adam couldn't hide his awe as his eyes scanned the towering shelves, filled with knowledge that spanned millennia. "This place is incredible," he whispered, his voice barely audible. Livara placed a finger to her lips, motioning for him to stay quiet. "We're not alone," she murmured, her sharp senses alert. Adam nodded, his posture tensing. Together, they moved deeper into the archives, keeping to the shadows. Livara's fingers danced across the console of the central terminal, accessing the restricted sections with her royal clearance. "What exactly are we looking for?" Adam whispered as he kept watch. "Schematics, data cores, anything that could help Earth recover its environment," Livara replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "The Yezeran ancestors developed advanced technology for planetary restoration. If it's here, we'll find it." As she worked, Adam's attention was drawn to a faint sound, a soft shuffle of footsteps from somewhere nearby. His instincts kicked in, and he touched Livara's shoulder. "We're being followed," he whispered. Livara's eyes narrowed. "Stay close." Moments later, the console beeped softly, and a holographic display illuminated the space around them. Lines of alien text scrolled across the screen, and Livara's eyes scanned them quickly. "This is it," she said, her voice tinged with excitement. "The restoration schematics. I'll transfer them to a data crystal." Adam kept watch as she worked, his senses on high alert. The shuffling sound grew louder, and he spotted a shadow moving along the far wall. "Livara," he hissed, "we've got company." Before she could respond, a sharp voice echoed through the hall. Well, Princess Livara. I had a feeling you'd show up here." Counselor Vethar stepped into view, flanked by two of his private enforcers. His expression was smug, his eyes glinting with triumph. "You've been a thorn in my side for far too long," Vethar said, his tone dripping with disdain. "Helping a human, betraying your own people. How disappointing." Livera stepped in front of Adam, her posture regal and unyielding. "And what about you, Vethar? Using the archives for your own gain. You're the true traitor here." Vethar chuckled darkly. "Careful, princess. You're in no position to make accusations. Guards, arrest them both." The enforcers moved forward, but Adam acted quickly. Grabbing a small object from a nearby shelf, he hurled it at the nearest enforcer, knocking him off balance. "Run," Adam shouted. Livera grabbed the data crystal and sprinted after Adam, the sound of boots pounding behind them. They darted through the narrow aisles, the glow of the archive displays casting fleeting shadows around them. As they reached the exit, Livera glanced back, her heart pounding. Vethar stood in the distance, his expression furious. "This isn't over, princess," he called out. Livera didn't respond. She and Adam disappeared into the hidden passageways, clutching the knowledge that could save Earth, and a secret that could expose Vethar's treachery. The narrow passageways beneath the palace were quiet, but the sound of hurried footsteps echoed through the stone walls. Livera and Adam ran without looking back, their breath heavy and fast. The data crystal, now safely in Livera's hand, felt like the weight of an entire planet's future. But even as they moved quickly, Livera knew they couldn't outrun their enemies forever. They reached the main corridor leading to the outer chambers, but as they rounded the corner, they were met with an unexpected sight. A squad of palace guards stood blocking the path, their eyes cold and determined. Livera froze, her heart racing. "How did they find us?" Adam whispered, his voice tight with anxiety. "I don't know," Livera said, her voice barely above a whisper. She couldn't understand how the guards had managed to catch up so quickly. They had been careful. They had covered their tracks. Yet here they were, trapped. Before either of them could react, the commander of the guards, Captain Ureth, stepped forward, a smug smile playing on his lips. "You should have known better, princess. You're not the only one who has eyes within these walls." Livera's stomach dropped. "You?" she asked, her voice filled with disbelief. Captain Ureth had always been loyal to her family, or so she had believed. But now, his cold expression revealed the truth. Ureth nodded. "I've been watching you, Your Highness, watching everything. You've been too distracted, too trusting. I knew you'd make a mistake, and here we are." Adam took a step forward, his fists clenched. "What do you want with us?" he demanded. Ureth's smile widened. "It's simple. Hand over the data crystal, and we'll consider sparing your lives. Otherwise, we'll take you both back to the dungeons, and I'll let Vethar handle you. And believe me, that will not end well." Livera's mind raced. She had no intention of giving up the crystal, but the situation was becoming dire. The guards were closing in, their weapons drawn. There was no way they could fight their way out of this. "We'll never give it to you," she said, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her. She wasn't going to let Vethar, or anyone, get their hands on the technology that could save Earth. Ureth sneered. "So be it." He gestured to the guards, and in an instant, they rushed forward, grabbing hold of both Livera and Adam. Livera struggled, but the guards were strong. They quickly overpowered her, and Adam wasn't far behind. Before she could react, she felt the sharp sting of a tranquilizer dart strike her neck. Her vision blurred, and her body went limp, the world around her spinning. The last thing she saw was Adam being dragged away, his eyes locked onto hers with a look of helplessness that mirrored her own. When Livera finally woke, she was lying in a cold, dark cell. Her head throbbed, and her body ached. The tranquilizer had been strong, but she wasn't entirely unconscious for long. She blinked slowly, trying to gather her thoughts. Her eyes snapped open as she remembered what had happened. They had been captured. The crystal was gone. The weight of their failure settled over her like a heavy cloud. She heard the sound of footsteps approaching. The door to the cell creaked open, and Vethar's voice rang out, cold and triumphant. "Well, well, princess," he said. "You finally learned that betraying me has consequences." Livera's head swam as she slowly regained full consciousness, her mind still clouded from the tranquilizer. The stone walls around her felt damp and cold. She pushed herself into a sitting position, her body protesting the movement. The events from the past few hours came crashing back to her. The betrayal, the capture, and the loss of the data crystal. Adam. Her heart sank. Where was he? Was he okay? The sound of footsteps echoed through the dimly lit dungeon, drawing Livera's attention. She looked up to see Vethar standing at the entrance, flanked by a few of his guards. His expression was smug, his eyes cold with satisfaction. "Ah, Princess Livera," he said with a mocking tone. "How pleasant to see you awake. I was beginning to think you might sleep through your own downfall." Livera shot him a hard look, trying to ignore the sense of helplessness threatening to overtake her. She wasn't going to let Vethar see her weakness. She had to remain strong, both for herself and for Adam. "What have you done with Adam?" she demanded, her voice steady, but filled with underlying fury. Vethar's smile widened, though it lacked any real warmth. "He's safe for now. But you, princess, you are in a much more delicate position. You've crossed me, and now there are consequences." Livera felt the weight of his words settle heavily in her chest. She had made a choice to betray the council and help Adam, her old friend. And now it was all coming back to haunt her. "I've done nothing wrong," she said, her voice firm. "I was protecting what could save my people. Earth is dying, Vethar. You've only cared about your own power and ambitions." Vethar's face darkened at her words, but he didn't react immediately. Instead, he stepped closer, his gaze narrowing. "You've always been so naive, Livera. You think you can change the fate of a planet with your human ideals. The archives belong to me now. You and your precious friend are merely obstacles in my path to ultimate power." Livera clenched her fists, her anger rising. She couldn't let him get away with this. She wouldn't. "You may control the archives, Vethar," she said through gritted teeth, "but you don't control me." Vethar laughed, the sound echoing in the quiet dungeon. "You're in no position to defy me, but I will make sure you learn your place. Guards, take her away." The guards stepped forward, grabbing her arms and pulling her roughly to her feet. Livera's mind raced. There had to be a way out. She wasn't going to give in. Not to him, not to anyone. Suddenly, she heard a door creak open behind her. She spun around, her heart leaping in her chest. There, standing in the doorway, was Adam. His eyes were full of determination, and he moved quickly toward her, ignoring the guards' protests. "I'm not going to let them take you," he said, his voice calm but full of defiance. In one swift motion, Adam tackled one of the guards, knocking him to the ground. The other guard reached for his weapon, but Adam was faster. He disarmed him and sent him stumbling backward. Livera stood frozen for a moment, shock and relief flooding through her. "Adam, you're here. I told you I wouldn't leave you behind," he said, his eyes meeting hers with quiet intensity. Together, they moved swiftly, outsmarting the remaining guards and making their way toward the exit. The palace was now a battleground, with Vethar's forces in hot pursuit. But Livera and Adam were ready. They would take back what was rightfully theirs and stop Vethar once and for all. With the data crystal in hand and their spirits renewed, Livera knew this was only the beginning. They had come too far to fail now. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Livera and Adam moved swiftly through the palace corridors, the sounds of their footsteps echoing in the silence. The palace had once felt like home, a place of peace and beauty. Now it felt like a maze of danger, each turn leading them further into enemy territory. Vethar's betrayal had changed everything, and Livera knew they had to act quickly before it was too late. "Where are we going?" Adam asked, glancing over his shoulder as they passed through another narrow passage. "We need to reach the throne room," Livera replied, her voice steady but tinged with urgency. "There's a communication terminal there. If we can get control of it, we can broadcast the truth about Vethar and his plans to the entire planet." Adam nodded, his expression focused. "You think the council will listen?" "They'll have no choice," Livera said. "Vethar's actions have already threatened the kingdom's stability. If we expose him now, the people will have no faith in him. We'll have a chance to take back control." They reached a set of heavy doors leading to the throne room. Livera took a deep breath and pushed them open. Inside, the grand space was eerily quiet. The throne, once a symbol of her family's rule, stood in the center of the room, now a silent reminder of what was at stake. Before they could move further, a voice rang out from the far side of the room. Well, Vethar's voice echoed through the empty space. "You really thought you could outwit me, Princess." Livera spun around, her heart racing as she saw Vethar step into view. He was flanked by his private enforcers, his expression a mixture of amusement and disdain. "You always were too trusting, Livera," Vethar continued, his eyes gleaming with arrogance. "You thought you could expose me, but you're too late. This is over." Livera's grip tightened on the data crystal in her hand. "It's not over, Vethar. The people will know the truth, and they will turn against you." Vethar chuckled darkly. "You've underestimated me. The truth will be whatever I say it is. Guards, seize them." The enforcers lunged at them, but Adam was ready. He tackled the first one to the ground, using his momentum to push him out of the way. Livera didn't hesitate. She moved swiftly, dodging the second enforcer's grasp and heading toward the communication terminal. "You won't get away with this," Vethar shouted as he charged toward her, but it was too late. Livera had already accessed the terminal and began transmitting a live broadcast to the entire planet. "This is Princess Livera," she said, her voice clear and commanding. "And I have a message for everyone. Councillor Vethar has been using the archives for his own gain, seeking dangerous technologies for personal power. He has betrayed his kingdom, and he has betrayed you." She paused for a moment, her eyes locking with Vethar's. The rage in his expression was palpable, but there was nothing he could do now. The broadcast was already live, and it would reach every corner of the kingdom. The archives contain knowledge that could save Earth. I have the data, and I will ensure it is used for the benefit of all, not for the greed of one man. Livera continued. "Vethar's reign ends today." The room fell silent as the broadcast continued, and Livera felt a sense of power and clarity that she had never known before. She wasn't just a princess anymore. She was the voice of the people, the one who would stand up against the darkness that threatened to consume them all. Vethar's eyes flickered with fury as he realized the truth was now out in the open. His grip on power was slipping, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Livera had won. But the fight wasn't over yet. There were still forces loyal to Vethar out there. But Livera knew she had one crucial advantage now: the truth and the people behind her. And with Adam by her side, she would do whatever it took to protect her kingdom and ensure a brighter future for everyone. The days following the broadcast were a blur of chaos and uncertainty. The truth about Vethar's betrayal had spread across Ysera Prime like wildfire, and the once loyal council members who had supported him now turned against him. The people were angry, and their trust in the council was shattered. The power Vethar had once held began to crumble, and his supporters slowly dissipated, realizing they had been backing the wrong side. Livera and Adam stood in the grand hall of the palace, looking out over the balcony at the city below. The sky was streaked with the warm hues of a setting sun, casting a peaceful glow over the capital. It was hard to believe how quickly things had changed. It felt like a lifetime ago, when they had been running from the guards, trapped in the palace and unsure of their next move. "We did it," Adam said quietly, his voice filled with awe. His eyes never left the view of the city. "You really did it, Livera." She smiled at him, a sense of relief washing over her. It wasn't just me. You helped me when I thought all hope was lost. Adam turned to her, his expression serious. You know, Earth might still have a chance, but you're the reason I believed we could save it. I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't found you. Livera's heart warmed at his words. Despite everything they had been through, there was still a bond between them, a bond that went beyond duty or friendship. It was something deeper, something neither of them could ignore. We still have a lot of work to do, Livera said, her voice determined. Vethar may be gone, but there are still people who want to use the archives for power. I can't rest until we've secured the knowledge and made sure it's used for good. Adam nodded, his gaze unwavering. I'm with you, Livera. Whatever happens next, we'll face it together. The sound of footsteps interrupted their quiet moment. Selin, the young intelligence officer who had helped them from the start, entered the room with a stack of reports in his hands. Your Highness, he began, bowing respectfully before continuing. We've gathered all the data from the archives, and the first steps toward planetary restoration are underway. There's hope for Earth, real hope. Livera took a deep breath, feeling a sense of pride swell within her. Thank you, Selin. Let's make sure we don't waste this opportunity. She turned to Adam, her eyes meeting his. There's still much to be done, but we've made the first real step towards saving Earth, and maybe even HFY Prime. Together, we can make sure that this knowledge is used wisely. Adam smiled, his heart filled with purpose. Then let's get started. The next days were filled with meetings, plans, and promises of a better future. Livera worked closely with her advisors, ensuring that the technology in the archives would be used to heal both planets. The council was reorganized, with new leaders emerging who had the people's best interests at heart. And though Vethar's betrayal had caused irreparable damage, it also sparked a new sense of unity among the people of HFY Prime. For the first time in years, Livera felt a true sense of hope, not just for her people, but for the human world that Adam had come from. The restoration of Earth was no longer a distant dream. With the knowledge they had unlocked, there was a path forward, a chance to rebuild and thrive. As Livera and Adam stood together at the palace balcony once more, looking out over the kingdom, they knew the road ahead would be long and challenging. But they also knew they weren't alone. They had each other, they had the truth, and they had the strength to face whatever came next. For the first time in a long while, the future felt bright.